Okay. In this video, we're going to look at cell parts, and I'd already started a video and messed up, so I already have some stuff written down. You just need to write down what I have. Make sure this autofocus is locked in. We are looking at, these pictures are going to be of generic eukaryotic cells, and what I mean by eukaryotic is they have a nucleus, okay? So this is where the DNA is going to be stored. Ribosomes are created and all that kind of good stuff, but they have a nucleus. You can see the nucleus here. If you look on page 79, you also see that says nucleus. It's super fuzzy. Where is it? Micronucleus. Micro just means tiny, but there's still a nucleus. So as long as it has and then it has a macronucleus. So it has a big one and a small one. And then this labels nucleus here. It's showing you that it's in all those. So anytime you see cells with nuclei or nucleus, you are looking at a eukaryotic cell. So we have generic. These are generic, meaning that, you know, they don't all look like this. Like I said in the other video, I cannot tell you how many different cells. I've never seen one that looks like this. This just kind of has all the stuff representing all the available stuff, except a flagellum, for a eukaryotic cell, an animal cell. And I'll talk about later on why I know this is an animal and not a plant cell. And you can see the structure. That's a dead giveaway. Plant cell. And I'll talk to you also about how I know this is a plant cell and not a fungus, a fungal cell. So fungi also have some cell walls, and they have a little bit of structure similar to plant, but you can see that you know, these are kind of stacked and they're very squarish. But there are some things missing. And then Protista, Kingdom Protista is the funky little kingdom that we'll talk about later, that they have all kinds of weird things going on. They look very much like bacteria, but they are not. They have a nucleus. That says nucleus, like we said, that says nucleus, but they are usually unicellular like a bacteria. They can look very much, but that's your kicker, looking for a nucleus, and then you know you're looking at a protist. So down here, these are prokaryotic cells. There is no nucleus. If it says anything like, you know, remember deoxyribonucleic acid, nucleic, if it has that word like nucleo or anything like that, but it's not a nucleus and you can see loose DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, or it just says chromosome and it's not being protected by anything, you are looking at a prokaryotic cell. So if you need review over that, go back to the microbiology. This is all bacteria. Bacteria that only, like if we put bacteria in a big group, that is the group of prokaryotic cells. Every living thing, every other living thing that we know of that isn't a bacteria, archaea or eubacteria, is in one of these other four kingdoms. Okay, they're eukaryotic. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is looking at pages 80. Let me scratch out what I messed up on, because that's where I messed up. I'm just going to scratch it instead of 80, 81, and 82, and then we're going to go back and forth to these pictures and label some of those spots. So cell organelles are and like I said in the last video, they're the tiny organs. They're like, you know, your organs that do different jobs. They look differently and they do different things that keep you alive. These are the tiny membrane-bound pieces of cells that do the same kind of stuff on a cellular level. These are your mitochondria and your nucleus and your Golgi apparatus and all that kind of stuff, okay? So cells are living things, and they need to do their job. They're shaped for their job. They all have different jobs. Like I said before, humans have about 200 different types of cells, all doing different jobs so that the human itself can stay alive. So cells perform work to keep themselves alive. They're living things. They need to stay alive, so they do work to keep themselves alive, and then they also do work to keep whatever the larger organism is. Like you're made of about 100 trillion cells. So, you know, all those 100 trillion cells are trying to not only keep themselves alive, but do their job to make you stay that way as well. Okay? Okay. And so organelles are the cell organs, or we might call them cell parts. Okay, so these are the pieces, the individual parts inside the cell that Robert Hooke could not see when he saw those empty rooms and named it a cell, but they're very, very not empty. These are all the things that are inside that are doing all the jobs to keep cells alive and therefore keep whatever the organism is alive. Okay, so we're just going to start with the some of the outer parts. So in a plant cell, and fungi, and bacteria, and some protists, depends on what they are as to why they have it, but cell wall. Okay, so a cell wall is this part. I'm using the wrong pen. Is this part right here. It's the very rigid. It creates a rigid structure. I think of it kind of like the bricks of this classroom. They give it structure because plants don't have a skeleton. Your skeleton gives you structure. Plants don't have a skeleton, but a plant does have a structure, so they have a cell wall. It is the outer rigid supporting layer of plant cells. Here, plant cells and most unicellular organisms. And I needed to have plant and fungal cells right here. Fungi, like if you're looking at a mushroom, it has a structure and it doesn't have a skeleton. That's because it has, so fungi needs to be up here. Unicellular fungus like yeast has a cell wall for protection, just like protists do and bacteria do. But fungi, as far as like the ones that, we eat on our pizza or something like that, they have cell walls like plants do to give them a structure. They're multicellular and they have a structure, but they do not have a skeleton. Okay? So cell walls are for that, and we are going to talk about that in more detail. I have one little foldable that I love to get like everything put together, and cell wall is a huge deal. And fungi, like I said, I don't like that it's over there. So think about this as a multicellular. Let's just add on fungi, multi and unicellular. Okay, so on the multicellular and the unicellular level, fungi will have them like plants do, and protists for whichever part. Okay, cell membrane. I didn't have to write that again. It's printed really big, but whatever. We talked about this. I don't have a book right beside me right now, but we talked about this earlier when we talked about osmosis and diffusion, everyone's favorite part. It is that lipid bilayer. And remember, bi means two, so it's two layers of phospholipids that surround all cells. Y'all, I don't care if, well, let's go back over here. I don't care if you're talking about an animal cell where we are looking at the cell membrane right here. You need to be labeling this with me. Or a plant cell, if we're looking at the cell membrane, like just inside that cell wall, which I forgot to label. So let me find where they have it labeled right here. The cell wall will be on the outside of that cell membrane, which is just like laying right, and you can't see it really in this picture because it's just going to be a line right inside there. Where's my other pictures? They're on the other side of the sheet. Hang on. I'm not sure that it would even have this here, but this would be your cell membrane. Okay. These don't show to have a cell wall because these are animal-like protists. That's why they have anal pore and like a mouth pore. These seem animal-like because they move around, they consume, stuff for food. We have this one. I can't read that well. Yeah, this one right here has chloroplast. So this is a plant-like protist because it creates its own food. It has chloroplast like a plant does, so they're photosynthetic. This is probably algae. And then fungus, they have their cell wall on the outside part, and then it just says membrane, cell membrane. So you are looking, plasma membrane means the same thing as cell membrane, okay, and cell wall. So these things are found in these different, and like I said, the protist doesn't have a cell wall up here. It's just not showing one. But these things are here for structural support, or just if it's a cell membrane in every single cell. It surrounds everyone, because their job, the cell membrane's job, is to be that that bouncer. You know, it's supposed to be like, nope, you can't come in, or you have to stay, or whatever, or allow things to come in. It's to maintain homeostasis. And that is balance. Maintain homeostasis. Y'all, if you are asked a question, it says the cell membrane, and it says anything about creating or destroying or building or synthesizing or neutralizing or anything, like, it does not do any of that stuff. It does not create anything. It does not do all that. It allows stuff in and out of the cell, okay, to maintain homeostasis and balance within the cell. Something you will not see in these pictures, because if you had this in these pictures, you would just have lines all over everywhere, and it would be very confusing, is the cytoskeleton. So cyto means cell, and skeleton is that structural support system of your body. So skeleton, so cytoskeleton is a network of fibers. So that's why this is just showing you a nucleus inside a cell, and then it's showing you all this hairy looking stuff. Those are supposed to be fibers running all over the place. This kind of supports the integrity of the outer walls of the cell, or the outer membrane of the cell. So it's for support, for structure, to kind of help hold it as a structure, and to move things around sometimes. So to move things around inside the cell. Okay? And then something, again, that we can't have a picture because it, you know, it's just the fluids, the watery part, cytoplasm. So plasm or plasma is a version of that. This referring to liquid or water. Cyto, again, is cell. So it's the watery part of the of all cells. So it is the water-like material that fills up the inside of cells. So if you were to think of a cell as a pool, like we go to a swimming pool, and I say, you know, hey, you are a mitochondria, and you are a ribosome, and so are you, and then you are the Golgi apparatus, or whatever. The lining on the inside of the pool would be kind of like the cell membrane. The actual concrete part, or whatever is holding the pool in that exact shape, would be the cell wall. And then the water of the pool would be the cytoplasm. This fills it up. This takes up all the space. Stuff is floating around in there. So this fills the space between the organelles. It's the part that, you know, takes it fills up the space. Okay? There's kind of like no other way to say that. All right. So then some cells can have cilia. Oh, before I move on, I think that this one has a spot. Yeah, they do. For cytoplasm, and it's just pointing at this empty space. So it's just pointing at this empty space, because you can't, like, I mean, you can't see it. Even if this was in color, it's not going to have it. And this is doing the same thing, just pointing at the empty space, because it's not really empty. There's cytoplasm there, and there's also cytoskeleton. And let me see if these say anything. Yeah, cytoplasm. It's just the filler. Okay, so it's going to be in all of your cells to fill space. Okay, and then some cells, like this animal cell here, have these little hair-like projections. And if this were a cell that had these hair-like projections all over it, they would be intended to make this cell swim around. So they would just kind of like I think about oars of a Viking ship, okay? If you have a big old ship and you got one person down there with an oar just getting after it, it is not going to do anything. It's not going to move that. But if you have 100 or a few hundred of them all moving in the same direction, then that will make that ship move. And so you kind of think of this as the ship, and these are all like going the same direction. It will make that cell swim. I think we have some on this protist. We have cilia right there. They're short hair-like projections. That's different than this one over here. We'll talk about that here in just a second. So these all would be for swimming. We also, in our bodies, we have them lining our digestive system, and that is, it's more like this. Okay, this could definitely be a digestive system. And the cilia up here are projections of the cell membrane, which are allowing, absorption of nutrients and stuff like that. So these cilia would be to increase surface area. So I kind of think about it like this. If I take my hand, and I wish I could get this further away from me, but I can't. Maybe I can. Okay, I don't know why there's such a lag, and I am sorry about that, but it is bad today. So if I take my hand and I say, okay, here's my glue. So this is food, and if these are my absorbing small intestine cells, and I take this and I just go across. I'm not going to pour the glue all over it, but if I just poured, let's pretend I'm pouring this, that glue would just go all across the top of my knuckles, okay? So I would be able to absorb that nutrients. If the glue was my nutrients, I would be able to absorb it all across here. But if I take that same hand and I add these, let's pretend my fingers are cilia, and then I take my glue and I pour it, now I've got like all of this surface area that can absorb those nutrients to come down into the cell. So cilia for us in our digestive system, it increases surface area, okay? For our in our respiratory system, we have cilia that are all just like doing like this, and those help move oxygen down into our lungs, okay? So cilia for us, as far as humans go, are more for, they're going to be more for either increasing surface area or to move stuff around, not so much the cell itself. But then other things, smaller things, bacteria and protists and stuff like that use cilia. So this one on the microbiology section, we labeled that cilia. And then they have cilia, and that's really for moving the cell itself, okay? So cilia. Cilia are short hair-like projections for movement. Again, whether you're talking about movement of something or movement of the cell itself, or to increase surface area like in our digestive system. Which specifically are small intestines for that, okay? And then flagella. Oh, I didn't mean to write that black, but whatever. Flagellum would be singular. Okay. So flagella, flagellum are long tail-like. So these are much, much longer. These are also for movement. The only human cell that I can think of that has flagella is a sperm. So this would be, and we are uniflagellated, meaning that we have one flagella. So just y'all, I just need you to get used to taking big words that look super weird and scary and look at them and say, what word parts are there? And what do those mean? So uniflagellate means one flagellum. Okay, this would be like multiflagellate or biflagellate or something like that. Okay, so just get used to breaking those words down and make it where they're not scary. They're just taking meanings and putting them all together in one big word. So in that bacterial prokaryotic cell, we had a flagella. We have one right here for swimming. This protist has a flagellum. It's the same thing. It's just using it in plural, and then plants don't have that. I'm sorry, I didn't finish my thought. Plural and singular form. Okay, so that's what that is. Pretty easy. All right, so the thing that makes us look at cells differently, if they are eukaryotic or prokaryotic, is this thing right here, the nucleus. Okay, remember I said The nucleus is like the skull, not the brain. The brain is like the DNA inside of it. It's the thing. Okay. So we've talked about these before. Most of these things we've talked about. What I did to teach this class is we took some of the major parts of the cell, and we've already discussed them. The mitochondria. If you don't remember all the details of, you need to understand cellular respiration, making ATP. This is the organelle of cellular respiration. It is very important to remember that. So go back to that section if you need a whole lot more stuff talking about mitochondria. It breaks down glucose, which is the basic sugar, basic food source, in the presence of oxygen. We need oxygen to get all of the available energy out of glucose to make ATP, which is energy. Okay? So if we look at, actually, yeah, let's go ahead and look at that. So if we look at our animal cell, we can see mitochondria right here. All right, because animal cells need to make energy. If we look at our plant cell, we can see mitochondria right here. Mitochondrion, we see one. Mitochondria is plural. That's okay. Just know that those words are funky if they get plural, whatever. But we can see mitochondria toward the, outside the rim of the plant cell. Let's see about our other cells. I'm not sure that they're going to have anything. Yeah, mitochondrion. There's the singular word for mitochondria. There it is again. Okay, so they're just going to show it in like a little squiggly form. So these are here to break down glucose to make ATP. Again, I'm not going to come back down here again because you're not going to see any of that stuff. That is not, well, we'll see ribosomes, but you're not going to see any of this other stuff. Okay? Now, the chloroplast. I like to use green on this because that's what makes plants look green. This is the site of photosynthesis. Okay? This is the site of photosynthesis. This is the organelle where, and it's not plants, autotrophs. Remember, auto means self and troph, we're referring to nutrients, so they're making their own nutrients. Plants do that, but more than plants will do that. So they make glucose, which is sugar, and chloro means green. Okay, so this is the part, and so the green parts of the plants have chloroplasts. They're trying to absorb sunlight, so that's why leaves are like spread out all over the place, because they're trying to absorb as much sunlight as they can to get it to the chloroplast to make glucose. You are not going to find those in an animal cell because animals are heterotrophs. They do not have that. So that's a kicker. Oh, and I forgot to do. These are the centrioles. Sorry. So you can see those little things here. You're not going to see centrioles in a plant cell, but you're not going to see chloroplasts in an animal cell. We look down here, and there's our chloroplasts. And look, they're right beside the mitochondria. Go back to your cellular respiration photosynthesis section. Mitochondria need glucose and oxygen to create ATP. They give off, you exhale, water and carbon dioxide. Chloroplasts need sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to make glucose and oxygen. Those are right beside each other because they need each other's products. Okay, they need each other's products to become the reactants. Look back on that section. You can also, if you can see it in this berry, these are showing chloroplasts right here of this protist. So this would be a plant-like protist because it is making its own food. You're not going to find chloroplasts in a fungus. Mushrooms aren't green. Mushrooms, I'll just kind of go straight to mushrooms when I think about a fungus, but they are typically decomposers. They are not doing that to be nice. They're not doing that to try to keep, the earth clean. They're doing that to get their food. They're not making their own food. So you're not going to see chloroplasts down here. I'm going to stop there because this video is already 24 minutes long, and I'm going to pick up with the rest of the organelles in the next video.